Hello, my name's Andy. Welcome to episode 37 of Keeping Water. In this week's episode, I'm going to be giving an update on the plants project, show some miscellaneous jobs I've done around the pond, and take a look at how the fish have been feeding now we've had some warmer weather. Thanks a lot to all the new subscribers. I've had another healthy increase, and amazingly I'm heading towards 200 subs, which is fantastic, and I'm really grateful to new and old subscribers alike. If you're not a subscriber, then remember that anyone who subscribes will find that they develop a magical ability to communicate with their fish, although you may find that they do little in response. Anyway, in more sensible but secretive news, Project 3 for 2021 is well underway, but I'm keeping it under wraps for now. It's my favourite project of the year, so I can't wait to share it in a future episode. Right. Let's get started. I've got a few jobs done around the pond this week. Some were successful, some a little less so. The first job was to sort the edging around the pond. The original edging was made up of some wooden bricks that were joined together, but not fixed to the ground, because of, well, reasons. Anyway, the pebbles around the pond inevitably ended up in the pond due to the wood edging not being strong enough to hold it back. So, my job this week was to replace the wooden bricks with paver bricks and cement them in place. I didn't film the whole process because it's not that exciting and I'm pretty awful at it. There are a number of takeaways I had after doing it. Firstly, the pond looks so much better without the heron fence. I forget how much better until I take it down. Still, it's a necessary evil I guess, but I'd like a better looking alternative. Secondly, I know I should have taken some time to level the ground a bit because it looks uneven in a few places. My default position though is that I'm going to call it a rustic look and leave it at that. Lastly, I'm pretty happy with it, rustic appeal aside. It's doing exactly what I wanted it to do and it looks okay, and I especially like the look of it around the skimmer in spite of the lack of right angles. My next job on the list was refilling the hole in the planted wall area I'd made when adding the splitter to the filter return. I wanted to make sure I could still access the taps on the splitter to adjust the flow to each outlet should I need to. I therefore used some 4-inch pipe to keep a channel open through the earth to the taps. I toyed with using some concrete and making it a bit more solid, but finally decided that was a bit overkill and a bit too permanent. I later bought some caps to cover the pipes, but as you can see they didn't fit both pipes, so I'll need to do some tweaking. The pipes work for access though, so all I need to do now is replant the area to make it look a little better and hopefully hang over the wall and cover the pipework a little. Job number 3 was to add some filter start gel into the moving bed. Now I'm not 100% convinced by the efficacy of these products, but a lot of pond keepers I respect use it, and this time of year is when the filters would most benefit from it, so I thought I'd give it a go. Adding it to the filter is pretty easy, and the gel sticks nicely to the media, hopefully giving it time to settle and colonise in the moving bed. So, on to the next and last job, clearing out the pebbles. Although this was the hottest day of the year so far, and the fish were appreciating the warmer weather, it felt pretty cold to me in the pond, so this job would need gloves and waders. First to clear up the pebbles in the plants and on the first ledge into the pond, which I could mostly do from the side, before I then needed to get the waders on and get in the pond for the deeper stuff. It was all going well until once again I knocked the pipe off the pump, which is obviously not helpful as it tends to stir things up and make work in the pond a little tricky. Anyway, I got it fixed, but called it a day on the pebbles. I have some more jobs to do in the pond coming up, so I'll finish it then. So, an update on my deep water plants test. As you may have seen in a previous episode, I used some gravel liner and media grids to attempt to have some deeper water plants at the bottom of the pond without using less natural objects like baskets. One of my concerns was the fish, more specifically the carp, would either eat them or just damage them by being boisterous and unconcerned or impressed by my attempts at creative planting. Anyway, although these clips don't show it too well, the recent warmer weather and raised pond temperatures have meant the fish have been much more active, and within hours of the water going above 10 degrees, the carp decided that the plants needed to be rearranged a bit. So, it was time to take the plants out. Some had detached and sunk a little, Some had caught up in the remaining plants, and the rest looked a little battered and sad. I therefore netted the loose ones out, and then pulled the liner and grid out and had a look at the plants. The remaining ones were loose and fragile, and I decided not to return them to the pond. My options for the future are to use the gravel liner for my plan B, and or to make a version 2, but this time for lilies. We'll see, but I'd love to hear your suggestions and advice. As you may have seen in last week's episode, the rudd were up at the surface feeding, and the carp and tench were slowly starting to feed higher up in the water too. In the last week, however, with even warmer weather, the carp and even the tench have been more active and feeding keenly from the surface. As you'll see throughout this clip, the common is still feeding more eagerly than the mirror carp, the opposite of what we saw last summer. It will be interesting to see if, as we reach the warmer months again, whether the mirror will once again become the greedier of the two. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Keeping Water. I really do appreciate it. In next week's episode, I'll be showing some of the new planting I'll be doing in the walled area, how my latest water tests have gone, and I'll maybe take a look at Plan B for the gravel liner. If you want to watch that, and not miss Project 3 when it's revealed in a few weeks' time, then give some thought to subscribing. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.